Hi, David. Thank you for coming on to the podcast. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. Thanks for having me.
No worries, no worries. I didn't know this, but you were actually born in New Mexico.
Yeah.
Do you have what age did you move over to England?
Well, so my dad was in the American Air Force, and I was born in Albuquerque, New Mexico, home of Breaking Bad. And I think we went on a little odyssey to Germany after I was born. And I don't remember much about the first kind of 6 years of my life. I think we're in Germany, and then I think we came back to the UK for a bit, and then we went back to America. That's my very vague memories from those years. And then in 1969, we went through a hurricane in Biloxi, Mississippi, which turned out to be at the time the worst hurricane in American history. And in
Jesus.
fact, these days it's only second to Katrina. It's still the second worst hurricane in American history.
Do you
So
have
we went through that. The place we were staying in was destroyed, so we came back to England. And my dad left the American Air Force. So from 1970 onwards, we lived in Stevenage in Hertfordshire.
what? Do you have many memories of the time with the hurricane?
I remember that. Yeah, we went into this U.S. Air Force shelter, which were these like cube buildings. I think they were testing them out to see if they actually worked. We were the guinea pigs, and I remember the roof was leaking where we were staying, and my young self remembers being quite scared. And then after the hurricane, we went out, and everywhere was just like completely obliterated. There was this brand new amusement park that had been built on the beach that was destroyed. And I remember seeing this dead cow laying on the beach that had somehow been swept over from farmland. I mean, it was like a war zone.
Yeah, scary times. I bet.
Yeah, very scary. Yeah.
What was it like moving over to England? Did you settle straight away?
No, I mean, my formative years were very like, in that school, in that school, in that school. So I was in and out different schools all the time, and as a result, I always felt a bit alienated at the schools I was staying in and going to, and I got a bit bullied here and there, um, which was, it was very difficult actually. I didn't really like school at all. But Stevenage also was a tough place to grow up. When I got older, it had all these like subcultures. I was a punk rocker, and we had skinheads and teddy boys and rockabillys and stole boys. Every subculture you can think of was around at the time. It was extraordinary, really. A great time for music,
Yeah,
um, but difficult to grow up. In Stevenage, it was quite. It was like that new town feel. You know, underpasses and roundabouts and dual carriageways. And it was like it had very little soul, Stevenage.
yeah. What age did you get into acting then?
Well, what happened was I left school at 16 with uh, two O levels basically, and I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I tried all kinds of things. I tried being a bricklayer and a plumber and a carpenter. I went to one of those skill centres at Letchworth in Hertfordshire, and I kept getting chucked off various courses. Uh, and then I was on this woodwork course, and this guy said to me, "You got two left hands, haven't you?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he said, "Well, look," he said, "I didn't find this; it found me." He was the carpentry instructor. He said, "You need to go back and do something that you're good at and see what happens." So I did. So I enrolled into Stevenage College, um, did some A level courses. One of the plays we were studying at A level was The Caretaker by Pinter, and I remember watching a video in college of this production. I was on my own, and in the production was like Kenneth Cranham, Warren Mitchell, and Jonathan Pryce. As a three-hander. And as I sat there and watched the play, I thought, this is what I want to do. It just kind of came on me like a light. So from that moment, I geared everything towards trying to be an actor. You know, got involved in local Amdram theatre, local youth theatre. I did A View from the Bridge for the North Arts Youth Theatre and got nominated that year as the best actor. So I thought, oh, I'm obviously brilliant. So auditioned for various drama schools and got into Rose Bruford.
How was that?
Sorry?
How was that?
Difficult, very difficult. Head of acting didn't really like me. A guy called Percy Stevens, and yeah, he's one of the first ever gay men in the UK to be married.
Oh, really?
So yeah, he'd been taught by Noel Coward, so the legend goes. So everything was like this. He was not bad, you know. It'd never say it was good. He'd always go, "It's not bad," and everything was about fucking, basically. You know, he's like, "What's your objective in this scene? You want to fuck her." So it was kind of funny, but I took the piss because I was very unreconstructed at the time. And you know, it wasn't because he was gay. It's just actually that he had a funny voice. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
and he shouted at me in one of his classes.
Really?
He said, "If you think you're such a fucking good actor, you can get out." So that was it. I was like on his shit list for 3 years. But it taught me discipline.
Yeah.
You know, I was very undisciplined at the time. You know, we'd had a tragedy before I went to drama school. One of my brothers had died, sadly, when he was 17. And excuse me a minute, I've got a bit of a cough. Yeah, so one of my brothers died very tragically. He had epilepsy and had his first grand mal fit in the shower just before I went to drama school. So
Sorry,
I was not in a good space to be there anyway.
Yeah.
I was this kind of punk rocker from Stevenage who, you know, even though I was quite left wing and quite sort of aware in some ways, I was also very ill disciplined and couldn't concentrate despite having done A levels. I would, you know, my concentration still wasn't great. So it was a baptism of fire, and the 3 years were tricky, but I came out the better for it, you know. And to this day, the training that I had at Rose Bruford has, you know, stood me in very good stead.
Yeah.
You know, I've got an acting technique which you need, and you know, and they say it takes 10 years after drama school before you become a proper actor, you know, i.e., you know, you really know what you're doing. And I'd say that's about right. You know, it took me a long time. I mean, in those days, they didn't really train you for TV at drama school. You know, it was all about theatre as well. So the first couple of jobs I had were On the Bill and London's Burning TV jobs, and I didn't know what the hell I was doing.
I was gonna ask, was London Burning the first one you did?
The Bill
Oh,
was
was the Bill the
actually,
first one? Yeah.
Well, I did 2 episodes of London's Burning. I did an episode where I was cut out, and then I did the Bill, and then the girl that I'd met from that first episode knew the director. So I went round to her house for dinner, and a director called John Reardon, was directing an episode, and he said, "Well, we better get you back in then, hadn't we?" So he called me in, and I got a part in London's Burning. I was terrible, and I felt really bad because I felt like I'd let him down. But you know, I had to do this scene through the shopping centre somewhere in East London. Might have been Bluewater or somewhere like that. Anyway, so I'm walking through this shopping centre, and I'd never done walking and talking. You know, I know it sounds bizarre, but you know, when you're walking on camera, you have to look really natural. I didn't have a clue what I was doing. So Andrew Kazamaya, who was playing one of the main characters in it, said, "Look, just follow what I'm doing. Just follow what I'm doing." So I did the scene to start with, and the note I got from the director was, he said, "David, you look a bit wooden." So I went back and did it again, but it took me a bit of a while before I learned to relax in front of the camera.
Yeah. You was on about drama school before. Is there a lot of people that go there that don't make it?
Yeah. Oh, loads of people, loads of people.
Is
Yeah.
it a tough environment, like for people like that?
Well, I think drama school will find you out. If you're not committed because of what you have to go through, and there's long hours a lot of time. The teachers can be quite bullying as well. And they make you feel like that there's this big mystical secret to being an actor. But yet I think it's necessary to kind of really understand what you're doing. Someone like me who, excuse me while I pour myself a coffee, someone like me, someone like me who was by no means a natural, had to go to drama school because I had a lot of before I went, I thought I was Marlon Brando. By the time you get there, you realize that you got a lot to learn, and the kind of veneer of self-confidence completely goes when you realize you haven't got a bloody clue what you're doing, really.
You're the first actor I've interviewed, so there's something I want to know. How long does it take to like get into the character you're playing, and how much practice goes into it?
Well, that's a very good question. I mean, I'm auditioning all the time. So when I audition, I read the script and I get a strong idea of how the character could be. And then I find the right clothes for it, and I mean, a lot of the characters I play are quite close to me in terms of age and class and all of that. So it's not a massive leap, but every so often there'll be a character that's quite far away from me, like a British Army colonel I had to play once in America. It was very plummy and very upper crust, so I had to kind of do it like that. Colonel Gubbins, his name, was very much based on a real character. So you learn received pronunciation at drama school, RP they call it. You learn how to do different accents. But my method of acting is very much about using your creative imagination. So if you get an idea of what the character looks like, I mean, I literally look in the mirror and kind of imagine that this guy's me, what he looks like. I mean, I never see myself when I do this. I just imagine what this guy looks like, and and get a visual on it with the dress, and then I kind of hear his voice, and how he talks, whether he's got a fast inner rhythm, a slow inner rhythm. There's a lot to it. You get the physicality of the character. It's not just about doing the dialogue, if you like. You got to do all of this stuff first, figure out how he is physically, figure out what he looks like, and then when you break the scene down, you have to look at what he wants in the scene. And I think there's so many people auditioning for the same parts these days that you have to be really on it to stand a chance of getting the jobs. Even though I've had a relative amount of success, it's still like, you're only as good as your last job kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I'm still having to audition, which is a bit annoying, really. I was hoping I'd be at the position now where I just get offered work. I mean, I tend to get offered a lot of short films and low budget movies without having to audition. But for the big TV jobs, I still unfortunately have to audition.
What is the audition process like?
Well, these days it's all about what's called self-taping. So you get your iPhone, put it on a tripod. This is the iPhone 13, I think. It's got really good sound. The video's great. So I put it on my table. There's a wall behind me. I zoom in. I frame myself about here. and then I do the scene. But I do all the rehearsal beforehand. You know, obviously you've got to learn the lines, but it's not just about learning the lines. It's working out what your character wants in the scene. It helps if you read the whole script as well, which I do when I've got the time to do it. And then I have to get a friend over. I've got a mate who helps me out a lot, a guy called Ray Kalaja, who's a very good actor, who I taught actually at
Yeah.
a drama school called The Real Scene. So then you have them come in, they stand by the camera, they frame you, and then they talk very quietly because their voice is right near where the sound is, where the microphone is, and you don't want them overpowering you. So you get them to talk a bit quieter, and then, you know, you do the scene. You know all about camera techniques, so you look just off camera at them. You know, if there's someone else in the scene, you have to sort of pretend there's a second person and remember to flick your eyes across. So it's just about it's about knowing camera technique really, and knowing what looks good on camera. And
Yeah.
you know, when you've been doing it for as long as I have, it's sort of second nature really.
Yeah. Well, you were part of two of the biggest and best sitcoms in the 2000s, The Inbetweeners and The Office. Did you
Yeah.
expect them to be as big as they were?
No,
No.
no. I mean, you really have no idea when, you know, when you're doing a job, it's just another job. So you audition, you know, in those days you used to go in the room and audition, but these days it's mainly self-tapes. In fact, I don't think I've had a face-to-face TV audition in years. I can't actually remember the last time I had one. But you used to go in the room in the old days, and I used to prefer that because you get a chance to impress yourself upon the director and the casting director. Um, but you know, so I just went in and auditioned for The Office. I met Ricky Gervais, and I said to him, "I saw your chat show, uh, you know, on last night," and he said, "Oh yeah, yeah. What did you think?" I said, "Well, I worked with Michael Winner because one of his first guests was Michael Winner." And I said, "I worked with Michael Winner," and he shouted at me for 4 hours, and he laughed because I did a film called Dirty Weekend, which was this revenge fantasy that Michael Winner had directed based on a book by a woman called Helen Zahavi, and it was a really good book. So he did this film with Leah Williams, and I played this kind of gun-toting nut job in it, and I had to shave my head, and he literally shouted at me for 3 hours, so, or 4 hours, I think it was. So I mentioned this to Ricky Gervais, and he laughed. And then he remembered me, and he cast me as the warehouse manager. So
Yeah.
I remember going in and doing the scenes, you know, having quite good fun. I liked him. I liked Joel Beckett, who played Lee in it. And then Ricky gave one of my lines um, to a supporting artist. He said, you know, it's the bit where Sterling Gallagher, who plays the boss, comes down. He says, "What are you doing?"
Yeah.
Lee says, "Watching my dog shagging his dog." And I had this line where he went, "What she needs is a good shagging," after she goes, and Ricky gave it to an extra, and I said, "You can't give my lines to an extra." He said, "No, no, it'll be great, it'll be great." So I remember kind of jokingly saying to him, "You can't give a line of mine to an extra," but it was great. You know, I really liked him. I had no idea what it was going to be.
No.
I just thought it was another job, really. You know, and then when it became such a phenomenon and a huge hit, I realized how lucky I was to have been in it.
Yeah.
You know, and then we did the Christmas edition of it as well.
Is that the one where you're
I had that.
smoking?
What's that, mate?
Is that the one where you're smoking in that scene?
Yeah, so I'm
Yeah.
smoking, and I go, "Do you think we care as much about that baby as you do?" And the immortal line, "Just because you let some useless tosser blow his beak up your muff." You know, so I had that line, and that, you know, that became a big hit. I do all these cameos now, and to this day they still ask me to do that line.
Really?
You
I'm
know,
going to ask you later on about the cameos. Do you get a lot of requests like that? Yeah.
all the time. It's either that or Jay's dad from the Inbetweeners. You know,
Yeah.
But it was the same with the Inbetweeners. You know, I go for the audition. I remember going for the pilot and not getting the pilot, uh, and being a bit disappointed. And in those days, it was called Baggy Trousers. And then after they did the pilot, I think James Buckley was playing a different character. I've got a feeling he was playing Simon in the
Yeah.
pilot. So they recast him as Jay, and then they called me in, and I didn't realise that Ian and Damon, so Ian Morris and Damon Beasley, I didn't realise that they knew Ricky Gervais. So I think they must have had their eye on me from The Office. So so that character, you know, Terry Cartwright, was not dissimilar to Taffy from The Office.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, it was kind. I think Jay's dad was a bit, you know, a bit more fun. You know, but you know, he said some pretty harsh things and some pretty un-PC things as well. You know,
Yeah.
his attitude to women was very, very questionable, I think. Same with Taffy. You know, they're both a bit misogynistic.
Them two sitcoms won't work today, would they?
Well, you know, it makes you wonder. They probably wouldn't get commissioned. You know,
Yeah.
is the truth, because the humor is so old school. You know, it does make you wonder whether they'd actually get commissioned these days. You know, and you know, every so often I see little gifs of one of my lines, and I've got this line in it where they leave the caravan, and I go, "Don't rape anyone on the way out." And I was sent that on National Women's Day, and I've got really mixed feelings about it now, because you know, at the time, you know, you have to remember, I'm I went to a very left-wing drama school where there were a lot of, you know, flag waving feminists, and all the men were right behind them. You know, we were very into women's rights and things like that. And you know, and it was quite a tricky environment, in fact, to be a white sort of working class man. I mean, luckily I'd gone to college and done A levels, so you know, I was aware. I, I wasn't, you know, unreconstructed completely when I went to drama school. But then I leave drama school, this really left wing drama school where, you know, we're all feminist sympathizers, and then I get parts like this that are misogynist. You know, it did at the time. It did make me feel a bit uneasy. You know, and the funny thing was, when I saw that gif of Jay's dad going, "Don't rape anyone on the way out," I was shocked, because I don't remember saying the line in the series. You
Really?
know, I remember saying things like, "Women are like fairground rides, fucking mental," you know, and so you're back with a pig now, are you? You know, and talking like that. But I don't remember doing that rape line, because you know, because I think maybe at the time I just kind of thought to myself, it's the character. You know, it's the character. So it's not me saying it. I'm playing a character who thinks it's funny to use that kind of humor. But to be honest, I think if it was today, I'd probably say I don't want to say that now, you know.
Yeah.
And then when these scenes come back to haunt you like that, it's quite tricky, because I would never say that line on Cameo now. You know, they've tried. I've had a few lads who have tried to get me to say that, and I won't. You know,
No. No.
I don't want it. I don't mind saying some of the other stuff like "women are like fairground rides," because it's just silly. You know, it's just a silly line, and it's not as offensive as the rape one. You know, I just feel I would feel uneasy making a joke of that on Cameo these days.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's interesting how humor evolves like that. You know, I mean, I saw a Saturday Night Live sketch the other night between Chevy Chase and Richard Pryor, and you never get. They both get cancelled if they try to put that sketch on now. You know, where Chevy Chase says the N word to him, and it's like, wow, that's actually quite shocking. So it does show how, excuse me, it's like I've been doing this the fasting thing.
Oh
So I'm trying to do like 18 hours intermittent fasting today because I overate massively yesterday. So it's not so much punishing myself today. I'm just not hungry because I had a massive Chinese last night. Um, so I find if I drink coffee, it stops the hunger.
all right, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm gonna try and do like 18 hours fasting today,
Is it
which
hard
is
though? Still
yeah,
hard.
you start getting. I mean, it's getting on for 16. I think it's 16 hours now, and
Oh.
I'm starting to get hungry. Yeah, but so it is. You do have to be aware a little bit. I used to do stand up, and I kind of stopped doing stand up because I just sort of thought I'm worried about saying the wrong thing, and I was already well known from TV comedy, and I thought it's a bit risky doing stand up. Um, and also I sort of was trying to get away from comedy a little bit for a while, and get into more serious acting, you know. But I do think it's a thing that a lot of stand-up comedians struggle with,
Yeah.
knowing what side of the line to stay on.
Well, ironically, Ricky Gervais kind of addresses that life, doesn't he? Like makes
Yeah,
jokes about it, and
he's very clever, Ricky. I think his stand-up is quite near the knuckle, but he always says his jokes reflect on him as an idiot rather than being a target to people. But these days people get offended over anything as well. And I
yeah,
suppose as I'm getting older, I want an easy life. I don't want a load of people hating on me on Twitter and stuff. I mean, at least with the Inbetweeners and the Office, they were of their time.
yeah, yeah,
It's not something now where people are going, "How can you dare say that?" And I just think to myself, well, I'm not going to say certain lines on Cameo. It wasn't me who wrote them. I'm an actor who
yeah,
played
exactly.
them.
Yeah,
I wouldn't say that now, and we move on. You evolve, comedy evolves. So it's funny. The scripts that I'm given now are not that kind of humor as much. Or I'm always someone's dad who sort of has got old-fashioned attitudes, which makes me laugh because I'm not like that in real life. I'm
yeah,
actually quite aware and careful about what I say in real life, but everyone always thinks that I'm that character. So you just go, well, look, if that's because I did a good job, then I'll take that. I'm not gonna moan about the things that I get well known for because it's a privilege to be in hit comedies like that. You
yeah,
realize that you're very lucky, so I'm not going to complain about it.
yeah. Well, they're both brilliant comedies, aren't they?
Yeah,
What did you think to the Inbetweeners movies?
I really love doing them. I loved the first one. I thought it was great fun, even though really it wasn't about the parents. And I had some really nice moments in both movies. Like that big speech before Jay goes off on the first one. You know, uh, right? I warn him about girlfriend. His girlfriend will go off with someone with a bigger cock or whatever. So that's my sage advice to him as he goes off. And then in the second one is in Australia, and I was the only adult who got to go to Australia.
Yeah,
And I remember I was in Canada at the time with my then wife. We were visiting Niagara Falls, and we were supposed to go to New York, and then we'd already booked the holiday, and then I found out that I was going to have to go to Australia halfway through that holiday. So she went to New York on her own. It was freezing cold, and I went off to Australia, to the Gold Coast, to where it was like 50 degrees. So she was in like minus 20-degree snow, which she actually quite enjoyed, and she walked the High Line in that weather. I said to her, "You're mad," and she schlepped out to Broadway to see a play with Daniel Craig and Hugh Jackman. No, not Hugh Jackman, Daniel Craig and Rachel Weisz. It was Betrayal, the Pinter play. And see what a good memory I've got for theatre. And I was in the Gold Coast, and I flew over on the 31st, and then I got there on the 1st of January. So I missed New Year's. I
Really?
think it's the only year where I've actually missed New Year's Eve. So yeah, so I left one year, got there the next year. But it was so hot filming out there for the second movie. And I
Yeah.
was in that tracking shot. So I turned up on set, and Ian said to me, "What are you doing here?" I said, "What do you mean, what am I doing here? You've written me in the script." He said, "We thought we'd written all the adults out. So they'd made a mistake with me,
Really? Yeah.
because all the interior scenes they ended up shooting back in the UK. So all the other actors were dead jealous that I got to go to Australia." And I ended up staying there for 3 weeks. I flew my wife out, and we hung around the sort of Sydney area and went up to the Blue Mountains. I had a blast out there. I thought it was great.
Obviously, like James Buckley and I forgot the other names of the actual actors.
So Simon Bird,
Yeah, Simon Bird,
Joe Thomas, and Blake is
Blake. Yeah,
yeah.
they were a lot younger when they were
Yeah.
filming that. Did it ever get to the heads or anything, or were they always feet on the ground?
Blake Harrison was always lovely. Simon and Joe were always lovely. The only thing I remember about James was he was quite young, when we first started filming. And, he seemed a bit younger than the others. So Simon and Joe were Cambridge graduates. So I don't know if he felt a bit out of it, maybe slightly intimidated at first, but he was quite shy to start with. And then he kind of came out of his shell a bit more. But they were lovely lads. I got on with all of them really. And to see them go from unknowns to megastars was quite a extraordinary journey. I mean, when I filmed that Caravan Club episode to doing the movies, it was a massive journey for them from obscurity to international fame, really.
Yeah,
So I think they had a fantastic experience doing that gig, really.
yeah, it changed their lives, really, didn't it?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think it made them all quite wealthy and very well known.
Yeah. You've had a few stints in EastEnders that play three different characters. Did you
I
enjoy
have.
that?
Yeah, I mean, the first time I did it was years ago, where I played Ian Beale's private investigator. And I remember being absolutely terrified. I was so scared because in those days, EastEnders was watched by about 20 million people. And then the last time I did it, the viewing figures have gone down massively. But I probably enjoyed it more the last time I did it because I'm much more confident, as an actor. The middle time I did it, I played Shirley's landlord, and I was quite pleased with that performance. But I think I enjoyed it the most the last time I did it because I was working with the lovely actress who plays Jean in it, and she was so lovely to work with. I mean, it was weird because it was during COVID, so we were basically acting to tennis balls, because we have to keep the distance. And instead of the actor sitting in the seat, she's standing up there somewhere. So I'm having to act to a tennis ball there, and then the tennis ball moves. And then after we stop filming, I'll go and stand next to her and start talking to her. I mean, it was kind of crazy. So we had to stick to the COVID protocols as they were at the time. But it was great. I mean, I've always enjoyed doing EastEnders. I know Perry Fennick, who plays Billy Mitchell in it, quite well because I did I did a football hooligan film with him years ago called ID.
Yeah.
And he's every time I turn up and he's there, he's always lovely to me. So I do like EastEnders. You know, once upon a time, I would have loved to have been a regular in it. You know, but I'm not in control of these things. But who knows? Maybe I'll go back in it as a regular someday. You know.
Is the filming relentless on it? Is it like every day just filming?
Yeah, I think for the regulars it is.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know, if you're only going in for bits and pieces, it's just like, you know, you just look on it as a few days' work. But it's, you know, they work quickly, and it's like one scene after another. You got to be on it. You know, people who say, "Oh, soap actors are not very good," that's the opposite is true, because they have to work really quickly. They have to produce the emotion and then go and do a different scene. You know, I think it's a real test of your acting mettle. And I've just worked with a wonderful actress called Maisie Smith, who was in EastEnders
yeah,
for 5 years. I did a movie called Bermondsey Tales with her in the summer. And we did this scene. She plays my daughter in it. And we did this scene where I had to break down in tears with her. And she's crying as well. And she was so good. I was like, wow, I'm really up against it here. And we did this wonderful scene where we both broke down in tears. And I was really impressed with her. You know, she can just produce it like that. And I remember thinking, wow, I've got to step up to the plate here, you know. So yeah, it was great. I felt really I felt really blessed to work with someone like her, you know, and you find people also another great actor called Charlie Clapham, who'd been in Hollyoaks for some years. And he's again very au fait with the camera. You know, I think if you're doing a soap for a few years, it makes you really good with your camera technique, really natural, really at ease. You
yeah,
know, so I think people who criticize soaps don't understand how acting is, because that kind of that level of experience it gives you is like gold dust, really.
yeah. How long after an episode of EastEnders is filmed does it come out?
About 6 weeks, I think.
Oh, is that how long it is? Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, it's quite a quick turnaround.
yeah.
Yeah, I got the doof, doof as well
Oh,
when
did
I
you?
when I
Yeah.
did it last time. Yeah, I remember saying to her, "You're going to go to prison for a very long time." Doof, doof, doof. So I'd always wanted the doof doof.
Yeah, that's like a big thing in it for the actors.
Yeah,
You get
yeah.
that, yeah.
Everyone wants a doof doof.
Is it okay if I name some of the shows and films you've been in and you tell me your experience on them shows and some stories?
Yeah, sure. That's what I'm here for. Yeah.
Thank you, thank you. White Van Man.
Ah, White Van Man. Okay, I'll tell you what I remember is the director, a guy called Ian B. McDonald. Really, really good actor, director, sorry. And I remember I made a really bad mistake on that job that I've never made since. I didn't mention, so I was playing this character called the Cockney, and I didn't let him know that I intended to shave my head. And I didn't realize, but he didn't want me to have a shaved head, because Will Mellor, who was in it, who was the lead in it, already had a shaved head. So I turned up and he said, "What have you done to your hair?" He said, "I didn't know you were going to shave your." I said, "Oh, I'm really sorry. I just thought it'd be right for the character." And he went, "Yeah, you have to let me know." I was like, "Oh, sorry about that." So I remember, I remember making that mistake and thinking, "All right, always let hair and makeup know what you're doing with your hair." And then I subsequently did a comedy sketch show up in Edinburgh, and I saw Ian. He was up there, and I had a good chat with him. Because I think he's gone on to direct a lot of comedy, and if I'm not mistaken, some stuff in America as well. But that's what I remember about that job. He was a great director to work with, and that scene was like I think it was like a spoof of The Godfather or something, where we're all sitting around a table,
Yeah.
and it's all about territory and stuff. It was yeah, it was a cold day, but it was a good day because I remember working with Ian, and enjoying that.
Yeah, the name does ring a bell, Ian McDonald. I must have
Mm.
seen some other work he's done.
Yeah, he's done a lot of stuff.
Yeah, yeah. Grange Hill.
Grange Hill, I loved. I was in Grange Hill for a year, and in fact, I did the Grange Hill podcast quite recently, where they asked me all about my character, Tom Hargreaves. And that was a great training ground for me because I remember that I think I had recently done EastEnders, playing Ian's private investigator, or it might have been yeah, it might have been a year or so after that. But anyway, so I go in to the BBC and I have this interview with them, and the character says it's going to be in it for a few episodes. So I thought, oh, this will be good to get. And I just remember having a really good audition. And then I got this character who's in it for a whole season, which I
Yeah,
wasn't expecting. So I played Spencer's dad. And it was a great story about racism, basically. I was this kind of horrible racist dad who um, beats up this black guy, and my son sees me punch him, and so the whole thing is about me kind of wrestling with my own conscience and starting off being nastier and nastier and drinking more and not wanting to go out, and then in the end I turned myself in, kind of shamed by my son. I turned myself in. So I think it was a great storyline. A lot of people seem to remember that as well. I used to get recognised on the tube from Grange Hill. At that time it was around the time that I'd done The Office, and I remember this kid coming up to me and going, "Oh, can I?" In those days, it was still autograph. Can I have your autograph? I said, "You want me to write Taffy?" And he said, "No, no, no, it's from Grange Hill." And I was like, "Wow."
you get a lot of people coming up to you from the office as well, though.
Yeah, I mean, these days it's all the Inbetweeners, but every so often someone from the office, normally guys my age, who can remember it. And but I go to West Ham. I'm a season ticket holder at West Ham, so I often get people coming up there. But it's mainly the Inbetweeners, but every so often it's the office, and on Cameo it's often people wanting or recognizing me from the office. So
Yeah.
it's a mixture of both those programs, really.
James Buckley still gets stuff shouted at him from what he said in the Between Us. Do you ever get that?
Not so much shouted at me. I think, I'm kind of quite surprised, really. I think people are always really polite to me. Maybe they feel like that I'm going to bash them or something, or that I am actually Jay's dad. But I'm so the opposite of that character.
Yeah.
I'm quite sort of mild mannered and maybe a bit more educated than they expect. They expect me to be this geezer. And I've never really been that, even in my punk rock days. I think when guys are young, we all kind of wrestle with this idea of being tough, don't we? Who's the hardest kid at school? Well, I always knew I wasn't, so I never really had that battle. I
Yeah.
thought, I know tough kids and I'm not that. So, excuse me. So, yeah. So I think when people approach me, they often expect me to be a certain way, and I'm not really like that. Also, I don't drink alcohol, which surprises people. They always get, I always get this thing where people go, "Oh, I'd love to have a drink with you."
Yeah.
And I'm like, you'd probably love to have a drink with Jay's dad, because I don't drink, and I think you'd find me a bit boring, actually.
You get that like with a lot of other actors where people expect them to be the character they played.
Yeah, I think everyone gets it. If you get identified with a certain role, people just assume that you're like that. And some actors are like that. You know,
Yeah.
Danny Dyer is what you see is what you get. Um, at least it appears so. You know, but I think most actors educated to a certain level. You know, I don't think many actors are exactly the characters that they're playing.
Yeah.
Um, even the Eastenders actors, they might be playing a version of themselves, or maybe someone that they know, but they're not playing themselves. When people go, "Oh, they just play themselves," no actor plays themselves. You're still playing a character, even if it's very close to who you are. You're still playing someone else.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
Yeah.
essentially it.
Hollyoaks is the next one.
Oh yeah. So Hollyoaks, I remember that really well because Gillian Tailforth played my girlfriend in it, and I'd already worked with her on another daytime soap called Missing, and she was my girlfriend in that as well. So in Missing, I disappear, and I'd go and sleep rough, I think, somewhere, and then they find me. And the thing was, I was suicidal because I discover in the program that I've got MS. So when I come back, she gets really upset with me and whacks me and goes, "I was worried about you." So in Hollyoaks, I had exactly the same thing where she had to slap me around the face because one of the kids, and Charlie Clapham was one of the guys in Hollyoaks that I was working with at that time. And then who knew later I was going to work with him in the movie. So
Yeah.
in Hollyoaks, I play their uncle, and one of the kids accuses me of basically sexually assaulting him, and I'm completely denying it. And their mum whacks me round the face, who is Gillian Tailforth. So, and she really clocked me one really hard round the face. Yeah, actually, thinking about it, I don't think I was playing her partner in Hollyoaks. That was in Missing. I think I was playing her relative. And anyway, she cuffed me around the face really hard. And I remember thinking, "Oh my God," and she went, "Oh, I'm sorry, you're right." I said, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, it's fine, it's fine." So I carried on and did the scene, but it looked a really, really realistic slap. I have to say, I was found not to be guilty, and this kid was lying about me. I
Yeah.
think I think it was the character Robbie.
What
Yeah.
is it like with things like slapping in like acting? Do you usually actually get hit, or did
Well,
she
if you're
just?
acting opposite Gillian Tailforth, it's dangerous. Yeah. But I mean, to make it look authentic, you got to cuff them a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, if you do that, that looks all right. But if you really whack them and you hear the slap, it looks great. I mean, I've got mixed feelings about it because I know someone who got slapped around the face and got their eardrum burst. So
Jesus.
you have to sort of be a bit careful with it.
Yeah.
But I mistakenly said to her, "Yeah, just go for it," and she did. And then after the scene, she went, "Oh my God, are you all right?" I said, "Yeah, yeah, I'm fine." I didn't let on that my face was like boing, boing.
Next up is Ghosts.
So I had a really good time doing Ghosts, but it was just before lockdown, and there was a pervading feeling of, everything's about to go to shit. And I had 4 jobs at this time. I was off. I had 3, and I was offered another one. So I did Witchfinder. I was about to do Britannia. I was filming Ghosts, and then I was offered something in Pennyworth, the series about Batman's butler, and I really wanted to do it. It was a fantastic little part with playing an army colonel, and Suzanne Smith, the tricky casting director who is difficult to get work through, cast me in it. So I was thinking, I've got to do this. They wouldn't let me have the time off Ghosts, unfortunately.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah, because it clashed with a big scene that we had in the afternoon. So I couldn't do Pennyworth. However, I went into lockdown uh, having 3 jobs and being offered another one. As it was, Britannia got postponed, and I ended up filming that a bit later. But Ghost was fantastic. We were filming in this old house, the house that appears in the series, and that's somewhere down south near Guildford. and it's actually Bamber Gascoigne's house,
All right.
or a house that he inherited. I think he died recently, didn't he, Bamber Gascoigne?
I'm not
But
sure.
yeah, but that was a house that he inherited. But they were all such a lovely bunch of people on it, and you know, I had a really good time in the audition. You know, Jim Howick was lovely to me. Larry was nice. You know, they were all the other actors in it, I thought, were just really lovely people. So that was a joy to do. And then I was working with Akib Khan, who played my sidekick in it, and he was so funny. He's I think he was in the sequel to East is East. I think it's called West is West, and he's, you know, he's been in quite a lot of groundbreaking television, so he's got a bit of a following, Akib. But he was so funny and such a nice guy as well, even if he is a Man United supporter.
Next up is the IT Crowd.
Yeah, I remember doing that, and that's another one that people go, "Oh, I saw you in that episode," and it was called Gay the Musical, or the Workouting, wasn't it? And they had Gay the Musical as the thing in it, which, I mean, it was just utterly hilarious, absolutely hilarious. And I mean, it's kind of ironic because Graham Linehan, who wrote that, has since been sort of cancelled, really, for his views on trans people. And it's you know, I look on it now through a slightly different prism, but at the time, you know, it was great fun to do. One of the disabled guys who I let back on the van at the end of it is Asher Talla, who was the producer of The Office. So
Oh yeah,
he was in it as an actor.
yeah.
So it was great. It was just great fun. I mean, I didn't really do much in it, but it was, you know, I really loved that show. I mean, when I was younger, I spent my entire time thinking I should have had bigger parts, you know, until the Inbetweeners came along. I was happy with that because that was a regular character.
Yeah,
But all these other things like The Office and, you know, and the IT Crowd, I thought I should have had a much bigger part, really. But that, you know, that's the lot of an actor. We always want to do more, basically.
yeah. The next up is a film, Kidulthood.
Yeah, I played the taxi driver in Kidulthood,
Yeah.
and yeah, I remember. I don't think I worked with Noel Clarke in that, but yeah, I was driving through central London, and that scene where they all run out of the taxi, a real taxi driver drove past, and he went, "All right, mate, don't worry, I'll get him. I'll run him over." I said to him, "Mate, we're doing a film." I said, "I'm not a cabbie, I'm an actor," and he just suddenly drove off. And I told the kids what he'd said, and they were quite angry about it. But
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, but it's a great thing to be in. I remember Amanda Tabak, who was a casting director, who used to cast me in a lot of things back then, cast me in that film. So yeah, it was great. I enjoyed doing that, you know, and great film as well, you
Yeah.
know.
Casualty.
Yeah, I think I did Casualty about 3 or 4 times. I think the most recent episode I did was a massive coach crash where I was playing Santa in this thing and someone's nasty boss, and then the coach crashes and we're all kind of mangled in the wreckage. So I remember them dropping the coach from a height into this kind of quarry, you know, this huge quarry, and the coach just kind of shattered everywhere. It was a great fun to do.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that was quite a while ago. I'm struggling to remember that one so well.
15 stories high.
Oh yeah, lovely Sean Locke wrote that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that well. Benedict Wong, I think, was the lead in it, who's gone on to do amazing things in Hollywood. Do you know, I bumped into Benedict about a year ago up in Muswell Hill, and he remembered me. He
Really?
came
Yeah.
over and said hello. You know, and I did that series so long ago. But he was so lovely, such a nice man. But yeah, I remember Sean Locke kind of directing me, and I was playing this caretaker who sort of was smoking a roll up, and he made me do this scene about 20 times. He was trying to get me to do it in a certain way. So I kept doing it and kept smoking. And he went, sorry about this, David. He said, actually, just do it how you want it. So I finally did it after about 15 takes. I wasn't sure what he was trying to get me to do. And it was great. And, you know, it looks really good. And then what I remember is in the taxi on the way home, I threw up because I wasn't a smoker. And I'd smoked so many roll-ups, you know,
Yeah.
trying to do this scene that I was sick in the taxi on the way back. And then I watched it back and I thought that was absolutely fine. To this day, I wasn't sure what the hell he was trying to get me to do, but I remember him being lovely and getting on with
Yeah.
him really well. Yeah, so that was a good gig, that one. I enjoyed that.
If you can't answer this, then it's fine. But is there a role that you've auditioned for that became like a big character or a big series or film that you didn't get?
I'm sure there's been a load. I can't, not really one that springs to mind. I mean, I tell you what does happen is every so often I'll be watching TV and I'll know the script. And I
Really?
think, yeah, I'll think, how the hell do I know that? And then I'll remember that it's a part I've auditioned for
Yeah.
and didn't get, and I know the script. And I'll tell you what it happened with The Boys, because I've got an American agent, and I auditioned to play who's the main guy who's playing the Cockney in it? He's actually Australian.
Oh,
Anyway,
I don't know.
I can't remember his name now, but I auditioned to play his dad, and they got this guy in it who I could tell also was probably Australian, doing a Cockney accent as well. And all his lines, I was thinking, I know these lines. How can I know these lines? And then I remembered that I'd auditioned to play his dad in it. So that happens, but I'm not sure if there's been anything that's gone on to be a massive hit that I've missed out on. There's
Yeah.
been plenty of jobs where I've been disappointed I didn't get them, but I tend to just forget about it afterwards, you know.
You've wrote a few short films like Poppy's Present, Halftime, and you've wrote some theatre work. Is that how? When did you start writing?
Oh, I've been writing alongside my acting career for about 30 years. I've written a couple of feature films recently. I've written one called Back to Archway, which is a gangster film basically, which I'm sending out now. And we were due to shoot it in the summer, but unfortunately the money fell through. So I'm sending it out to other interested parties. I've co-written another film called Heavenly Waters. I should say I co-wrote Back to Archway with another writer called Matt Bartlett, and Heavenly Waters I co-wrote with Kim Leggett. And I've written plays. I wrote a play called Brotherly Love. I co-wrote another play called I've totally forgotten what is it, about an old punk rock band, Reality Chokes. That was it. I wrote that with an actor called Al Gregg, and we performed that in the Edinburgh Fringe. I performed Brotherly Love on the Edinburgh Fringe and in London as well. What else have I done? Yeah, so I've just written a play called Six Syllables of Love. I'm writing another film script called Shadow Realm, which is about gaming. I mean, I'm writing a book called Get Your Ass Off the Couch. And it's basically a comedy look at fitness for the over 50s, because all during lockdown, I basically did running.
Oh yeah.
You know, I started doing the couch to 5K during lockdown, and then I went on and ran a half marathon. So as I was doing these runs, I documented it all on the Health Unlocked forum on the NHS app, you know. So I basically had enough material to write a book. So
Yeah.
a lot of it is my diaries from that time. But it's kind of humorous, really, because you know, so much of it is about, oh, I got a hamstring injury, I got a knee problem, went out today, didn't get further than, you know, 2K. So it's like it's actually quite funny. When I read back on it, I thought, oh my God, you put yourself through the ringer just to run a half marathon, you know. So I've written 100 pages of that. I'm also writing another romantic comedy called 6 Words of Love. So I've written a play called 6 Syllables of Love, and I'm now writing a rom-com as well as all the other stuff called 6 Words of Love. So yeah, I've always been really busy as a writer. You know, I've sort of done it alongside my acting career. Back in the day, I wrote a short called Poppy's Present, which we filmed. It was directed by a guy called Chris Jury, who was an actor director. So yeah, you know, all the way down the line, I've been writing.
Is it through writing that you got into being a director?
Yeah, I've directed a short film called Father's Day. I actually did that for a drama school called The Real Scene, and I've sent my you know, a couple of my scripts to Alex Fidelsky, who runs The Real Scene. So you know, he's got this model of running a school that feeds into the business. So he's in quite an interesting position. So he basically runs the drama school, but he's also got an agency, and he's also a casting director, and he's also a film producer. So he's got his fingers in all of these pies. He's very entrepreneurial. So The Real Scene is becoming like this school and production house. And they've actually got the actor David Hay at the school. Sorry, the ex-boxer David Hay, who's getting into acting. They've got him at the school, and I went to see a film that he was in last night at Soho Screening Room, and he was very good in it. I think he's going to become a really good actor.
Yeah. So my last question is: you've mentioned you've been doing some writing. You also do acting classes. What else are you up to now, and what have you got planned for the future?
So yeah, all of those projects I've just mentioned are current projects, and I do teach at the Real Scene Drama School, and I also run my own master classes in comedy acting and also, you know, drama acting, not just comedy. But I'm probably also going to write a book about acting coming up, because I have a very specific way of working, and you know, for people who are new to acting, you have to have your own technique, really. And so much of acting has been about the Stanislavski technique. And in recent years, Meisner is he's not a new practitioner. You know, Sanford Meisner has been around in America for years. I think he's actually dead now, but his technique has been around for many years. So my evolving technique, because it's always evolving as an actor, is a combination of Stanislavski and Meisner. So I feel like, you know, I teach Meisner, so I feel like I want to write a book about it, and not just about that, but also about my own technique and how it's evolved over the years. So watch this space, more writing to come. I'm hopefully going to be doing my own film, Back to Archway, next year, playing the lead in that. I've got the movie I mentioned earlier, Bermondsey Tales, coming out, which I'm playing opposite Alan Ford, Maisie Smith, Vaz Blackwood, Charlie Clapham, and a whole host of other well-known actors. And then I'm in another film called Miss the Kiss, playing Sadie Frost's husband, and that's another gangster film. And I'm playing opposite Michael Head in Miss the Kiss, who directed Bermondsey Tales. So Michael Head is a name to look out for. He's going to be a top director coming up.
Yeah. Well, that's everything. Thank you for your time. I've really enjoyed that.
Pleasure, Ethan. Lovely to meet you, mate. Thanks for
You
asking
too.
me.
No worries. Thank you for coming on. I appreciate it.
Pleasure.